Boy, I hate gambling stakeouts. They are the absolute lowest ebb.
Hey, listen to you, white bread. Kicking up the deck shoes, taking in the rain, getting paid genuine corner of the realm for it. What do? Complain, complain, complain.
Who cares about busting some small fried bookie who's never gonna roll over?
And pray tell, why are we here, huh?
Because once a year, the commissioner gets on his hobby horse, rounds up all the gambling lowlife, and then tells the taxpayers he's this close to busting Albert Lombard. Freeze! Miami Vice!
Fast cars, flashy clothes, big money, heavy players, and the hot Miami scene.
These were the main ingredients that made Miami Vice one of the most innovative shows of the 1980s. Journey with Tim and Mark as we take a peek into the drama series with an MTV feel on the Vice of Miami podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Vice of Miami podcast for show number 7. We're glad you're joining us. This is Tim.
And this is Mark.
And we hope you enjoyed our last episode covering Miami Vice Calderon's Return Part 2. Well, Mark, let's get on with this show.
Yes, let's get on with the show. And today we're going to cover Season 1, Episode 6, called One-Eyed Jack. It's written by Alphonse Ruggiero Jr., directed by Lee Katzin, and the original air date is November 2nd, 1984.
In this episode, we find that Crockett tries to help an old friend with a gambling problem and is accused of taking money from a racketeer, Al Lombard. We see for the first time Lieutenant Martin Castillo, with a personality in stark contrast to Lou Rodriguez, quietly takes the helm of the OCB. Meanwhile, Sonny and Gina's romance continues to play out.
Okay, we're going to try something different for show number 7 here. As we said in our first few shows, eventually cover the main stars of the show, and today we're going to do that. So we're going to forego the goofs, locations, the music, and things like that, and co-stars and guest stars. And we're just going to cover one of the main stars today and then go on from there. Today we're going to cover Don Johnson.
Don Johnson is also known as Donnie Wayne Johnson. He was born December 15, 1949. An American actor with a long career in film and television. He made his acting debut in 1970, but it wasn't until 1984 that he landed his defining role as Detective James Sonny Crockett on Miami Vice, for which he received the Golden Globe Award and Emmy nomination. He would later return to the police genre in 1996 for the lead role in Nash Bridges, for which he was also executive producer along with Carlton Cuse, creator of Lost. He has also had a recording, songwriting, and directing career.
Okay, Tim, I'm going to cover his TV shows, most notable ones and his current ones. From 1984 to 1989, obviously, we've got Miami Vice, where he plays James Sonny Crockett. That's his main role, 111 episodes. From 1996 to 2001 in Nash Bridges, he was Inspector and Captain Nash Bridges. That's the main role, 122 episodes. He was also the executive producer. 2010 through 2012, he was in Eastbound and Down as Eduardo Sanchez Powers for 5 episodes. And 2021, in Kenan, he plays Rick Noble. He's the main role and 10 episodes. Some of his filmography is in 1975, he played in Return to Macon County as Harley McKay, which also starred Nick Nolte. In 2012, he was in Django Unchained, playing Spencer Big Daddy Bennett. In 2019, in Knives Out, he played Richard Drysdale. Yet to be released, in a movie called Shriver, he plays T. Wasserman. That's currently in post-production. Yet to be released, the movie called Rebel Ridge. It's currently filming. Again, these aren't his complete filmography and TVography. It's just a few notable ones.
And a interesting note, when I did this research, when it came to Return to Macon County, both he and Nick Nolte were unknown movie stars at that time in 1975. For as far as his music career, in the late 70s, Johnson co-wrote 2 songs that appeared on the Allman Brothers Band's album Enlightened Rogues. During Miami Vice's run, Johnson recorded his first solo album, Heartbeat, featuring the title track and his cover of Tell It Like It Is, the original version of which by Aaron Neville featured in Miami Vice. The album's title track reached the Billboard Top 10 in 1986, while the album went gold. He released a duet with then-girlfriend Barbra Streisand, Till I Loved You, which reached the top 30 in 1988, and his final solo album, Let It Roll, was released in 1989 and did not chart.
Don Johnson's been married 5 times to 4 different women. He was married in 1968 and annulled in 1968 to an unknown spouse. Another unknown spouse. He was married and annulled in 1973. He married Melanie Griffith in 1976 and divorced the same year. And he married her again in 1989 and divorced again in 1996. He married Kelly Flager in 1999. He's also had a long-time relationship with actress Patty D'Arbanville from 81 to 85, but they're never married. He has 5 children, including Jesse with Patty and Dakota with Melanie.
And then as far as other side interests he had, he was involved with powerboat racing. And in 1986, he scored his first motorsport victory. He won an 1,100-mile powerboat race up the Mississippi River from New Orleans to St. Louis. Characterized by shipmates as an aggressive, fearless pilot who did not make mistakes, Johnson was named the American Powerboat Association's 1988 World Champion of the Offshore World Cup. Johnson has also received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Well, it's not bad. Again, we didn't cover all of his filmography and TV shows and his whole personal life and all that, but we figured we'd give a closer look at the main stars of the show every once in a while. I think the next one we'll do, Tim, will probably be Philip Michael Thomas in a few shows. Next show, we'll get back into the co-stars and guest stars and all that good stuff. But it's not bad. It's Don Johnson. I like his character. I like him as a person. Not bad as a singer. I mean, it was kind of the Heartbeat. That was a good song back in the olden days for me.
Olden days. We're getting up there in age, but yeah, Don has always been a fave of mine, and I like anything just to glean and pick up and watch. I've seen a couple episodes of Keenan, and it's just a different character for him compared to what you're used to when he was really heavily involved for several years, at least from 10 to 11 years in the police genre. So that's what we're normally used to seeing him as.
Mm-hmm. I caught a few episodes of Nash Bridges. I think I got to go back and watch them all. They're pretty good. The few I saw were pretty good. I haven't watched anything else he's done. Maybe a few minutes here and there, but he's a good, solid actor.
Yes, Nash Bridges with Cheech Marin as a co-star.
Yes,
which was awesome. It was a very good show. Watched it from start to finish.
Yep, I definitely watched the episode a few times where Tommy Chong showed up and Philip Michael Thomas showed up. Okay, Tim, I guess we could get along to the trivia now. Last show, in show number 6, we asked what grade did Calderon claim he did not get past, but was yet still smart enough to outwit many federal agencies. Here's your answer.
For a few lousy dollars, get them to clean my toilet bowls. You don't get it, huh? DEA, FBI, county, city, the technologies, your computers. They can't catch one little man who didn't make it past the 4th grade.
And this week's trivia question is, what did Crockett refer to fishing as? You can post your answers on this episode's Facebook post, or you can email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com. We will air some of the answers. This is for fun, no prizes.
Okay, this is where we're going to discuss the show. On another Stakeout, Crockett and Tubbs, well, they're trying to get close to Lombard, who's pretty much a big-time dealer down there. Got his hands essentially pretty much in everything that's going on down in Miami, let alone everywhere else, mainly New York City. So Crockett and Tubbs are sitting on the boat, watching some guy in some office. He's answering every phone that he's got there, taking props, taking bets from who knows whoever, from who knows wherever. And Crockett chimes in and says, they're just trying to bust another small-time bookie who's never going to roll over. And when he means roll over, he's probably saying, rolling over on Lombard. Tubbs says he knows of Lombard from New York City. While they're watching through their binoculars and their super sensitive microphone, we've got this lady, Barb, as we find out, who's a former girlfriend of Crockett. She's in the office there. She asks Mickey, who was this small-time bookie, she asked Mickey for a break in paying a debt as her husband's tools were lifted. A goon's then directed to put the lien on her, smacks her around in the office. Obviously, Crockett and Tubbs are watching this, and they move in to help out, much like in, I think it was episode 2, when Ed O'Neill was starting to put the smackdown on some guy out in the parking lot there, and we're going to see in more episodes. They're not going to stand by if someone needs help. So they get into the office very quickly from almost, a quarter mile away. But they get in quite quickly. Scuffle ensues, the goons cuffed up. They bust in and they use the iconic freeze, Miami Vice. At the end of this, Crockett and Barb were walking along the dock. They last saw each other at her wedding 8 years ago, wondering why they haven't kept in touch, whatever. Crockett comes to realize that she's into Lombard for $11,000 and she's only paid $7,000 so far. She tells Sonny that they stole her husband's, Jerry's, tools until she pays up. Crockett is kind of persuading her to press charges on these guys, but she refuses to press charges on Mickey and that goon that smacked her around. Crockett is later explaining, you could do anything you want to Lombard. You could mess with his wife, you could date his daughter, but mess with his money, and it's essentially game on.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, Lombard's the iconic mobbed up guy that's just got his hands dipped in several different ventures, as we're going to see as we go along.
It took him 6 years to build up that business, and they wiped it out in a day.
Who?
I'm sure it's Rusak who does the dirty work. But it's Vincent DeMarco. What?
DeMarco is a right arm to a guy we've been after, Hal Lombard. They got $2.5 million out on the street at any one time. Lombard's the kind of guy. You can steal his wife, you can run off with his daughter, but you mess with his money, that's it.
So now we move into the OCB. Everybody's gathered there, and they're just busy hustling, bustling in the office like they usually do. And in walk this guy who's in a dark suit. He's in the middle of all these pastel colors and is largely ignored by the members of OCB until he whistles, and then he says, and this is something that I remembered from 30 years ago, "My name is Lieutenant Castillo. I'm your new boss. Can anybody tell me where my office is at?"
Tell me where my... I'm Lieutenant Castillo, your new boss. Can someone tell me where my office is?
In the corner.
Thank you.
And then he basically gets the eye from everybody. Tubbs makes the comment that he thinks that he's Charles Bronson by way of Havana. But once he finds his office, he gets right to work, and he's busting Sonny's chops because he's asking him, "Hey, did you do the report on this morning, like the morning's fiasco?" And then Sonny's like, "Well, not yet." They're eyeballing each other. They're forming opinions quickly without even really having any kind of long-term discussion. They're just getting in each other's head. They're trying to figure it out, but doing it very quickly because, they move, this show moves on really quickly to somewhere else. But, you
can see in both of their eyes that they're sizing each other up.
Yep,
New boss,
that's it.
The usual worker, you could tell they're sizing each other up for sure.
And, Sonny being probably the senior OCB detective there, he's going to be a little bit protective of their space.
Right. They're
with a newcomer.
They're set in their ways.
Yep.
On behalf of Barb, Crockett surprises DeMarco at a lunch somewhere at some poolside, and he kind of lays down his Crockett ease on this guy who he knows is pretty much scum of the earth, and he asks for Barb's husband's tools back. Sonny knows he's a second-rate loan shark, and he threatens to lean on him if the tools aren't returned. DeMarco and Crockett exchange glances and glares, but they know what each other's talking about. They know what each other mean. The meeting cuts short. Crockett leaves, and DeMarco says it's bad business to let people off easy as he's walking away. As he's walking away, we see Lombard slide up. Obviously, he's probably watching from the background. You could tell in his eyes, again, a lot of things where they're focusing on their eyes. You could tell the gears are moving in Lombard's head. All right, who's this Jamoke asking for tools back? Obviously, he knows something about something, so they're formulating something. Moving on, we're at the St. Vitus dance at the dockside there. Elvis was attempted to be wrangled by animal care workers as he's been tearing up the marina. He even showed up to a cocktail party, but Crockett, being who he is, being a smooth talker, he says he's in Miami Vice Auxiliary Corps, which we all know is a crock. He also says he's a hard partying kind of guy to those workers. I liked it. And Tim, I think you liked it when he rolled off some made-up law that gave Elvis police powers.
Yeah, that was hilarious. He's just making anything up, and these two animal control workers, they're just like, huh? But they bought it hook, line, and sinker. Mm-hmm. So once again, Sonny, even though he can become irritated at times with Elvis tearing up records and tearing up the boat. He will always stand by Elvis, and he's got his back, and he's not going to let anything happen to him or take him away from him, because that's his. Not only is Elvis kind of like a companion for him, but he's also a protector, because we all remember, Sonny really is living an undercover life on this marina, and everybody thinks he's a hard-partying guy, so he's using Elvis as his security as well. At some point during the scene, Crockett gets a call from DeMarco saying, hey, let's meet up at 4 o'clock to talk about these tools again.
Moving forward after the Elvis fiasco, we're back at that pool scene again. We're assuming later on, or maybe even the next day, but we don't know. DeMarco slides along an envelope to Crockett, which is $8,000 as reimbursement for the tools. Oh, we just sold them. Crockett assumes he's good to give the cash to Barb, starts getting up to walk away, but up walks Internal Affairs Officer Schroeder, busts Crockett for conspiracy. Obviously, we're thinking DeMarco and Lombard set this up, because in the previous scene, you could tell their gears were moving. So he's arrested. He had to give up his badge and his gun. Back at OCB, Schroeder calls Crockett a one-eyed jack, and it only goes to show us the side that he wants us to see. And this is after reassigning him to admin duties. Schroeder tells Castillo that Crockett convinced Barb not to sign the complaint, and then Castillo questions why all the John Does are listed on the investigative report, and then Schroeder says DeMarco's getting immunity because of being watched for 6 months, which we all know is a crock. Crockett says he can get Barb down to OCB to clear everything up, and it will. I mean, you bring her in, and she's gonna spill the beans. But then Castillo says, no, you're not. And then Crockett gets up in his face and says, if you think I'm sitting behind a desk with all this is happening, you're dreaming. And then again, just as when they first met, both of them give glares to each other. So, Crockett's kind of getting the shaft here. He can clear it up lickety-split, and then he gets the rug pulled out from underneath him by Castillo, which is kind of a crock, I think. What do you think, Tim?
Well, it could be, but it's also that Castillo is brand new to the office, and he doesn't really know Sonny well enough to vouch for him. He wanted to let it play out, but I'm also thinking that, and we'll find this out in a little bit, that he actually did a little bit more deeper research on his detectives, specifically Sonny in this case, just to have more ammo to go up against Schroeder later on.
Right. Maybe he, being new, maybe he's in the process of checking out all his guys that he works above, and maybe he hasn't gotten to Crockett yet to see, how good of a detective is.
Right, exactly. He's basically walking into the eye of a storm. He's barely 5 minutes in the office. It's obviously longer than that, but in a New York minute, he's got one of his detectives that are on a hook by IAB. So it's just, I think he wanted to proceed a little bit more with caution before he would attempt to stick his neck out. Wanted to know, is Sonny actually a good cop or a crooked cop? So
right. Exactly.
But the glares, it's just more that sizing up. For Sonny, I think he was just testing the waters on how far he can push, or what kind of edge can he come up to against his new lieutenant.
Okay, so moving along, we're at Barb's house now, and they're talking, Crockett and Tubbs are talking with Jerry, Barb's husband, and he explains she's not home. She got a call from some girlfriend and left, but he thinks she's back hanging out with those people. He doesn't say who those people are. We're assuming it's DeMarco and Lombard and whoever else. So we're just assuming it was DeMarco and Lombard there. And she's been gone for 3 hours. He explains that she's been depressed and wanted a divorce recently because of her troubles, but he refused because, he knows that they're strong enough and they'll work through it together. I think his role, this husband, is very weak so far. And I'll explain that later at the very end. So moving along, Tubb puts out an APB, which is now called a BOLO, all points bulletin, and it's now called Be on the Lookout, on Barb. Tubbs had to do it because Crockett couldn't. He was strictly admin.
He said, I'm no longer a cop right now, so You got to take care of it.
You got to do it. But then towards the end of the scene, Tubbs says that Switek has a good lead on a poker game that Lombard is running. We'll attend.
Then as the episode progresses, Barb goes and meets up with DeMarco, so it really confirms what her husband Jerry might have felt or feared, that going back to these people. So he obviously knew that she had some debt, and we're assuming it was some gambling debts. So she meets up with DeMarco and wants to try to give him what she had, which was $400 payment towards what she owes. And he says, you know what? Just keep it. I got other ideas on how you can work it off. And, then the scene ends there where she's getting into car with him. Is it really DeMarco that has the plans, or is it Lombard that has the plans for her? And DeMarco is a loan shark for Lombard, and obviously Lombard being mobbed up, he's the guy that really gives the orders, pulls all the strings and things like that. So
I'm sure he called the shot on that one.
Oh, there's no doubt he did. So off she goes. Then we come into a scene later where we are now at this poker game that Switek got the lead on.
All right, now we're moving along. We're at the poker game. Tubbs is doing pretty hot. He cashes in for $2,700, which ain't too bad back in those days. And then DeMarco, he's under the impression that Tubbs is from Philly. I guess it's something that some lies they already have set up just to play the game here to get close to Lombard. Tubbs explains he's hiding from the DA there on racketeering charges. DeMarco's impressed by the size of what operation that Tubbs was heading up in Philly, allegedly, and he kind of explains that there's probably a spot in Lombard's outfit for Tubbs, which Tubbs is very keen on. It's going to help him get closer. It's going to help Miami Vice and OCB get closer to Lombard. So he's like, okay, I'll help you out here. Moving on at nighttime here, obviously the love affair is on again between Gina and Crockett. Crockett's walking up to the St. Vitus dance, and she's already prepared a meal and a drink. And Crockett says it's good timing. I'm guessing it's probably because of his case and the weight that's on his shoulders. He's got to unwind, got to lift that stuff off his shoulders. So it's obviously, great timing that she would provide this release for him in more ways than one. Tubbs shows up the next morning asking about alibis so he could meet Lombard. The alibis that were being set up in the case by Crockett. Their names were Walper and Detalis.
Yep.
Obviously, Lombard's going to check out his story. Crockett gives him the rundown. And then towards the end of the scene, Switek calls the boat. Crockett has that look on his face that something's wrong and informs Crockett that Barb is on the end of the lake.
And as we move on now to the lake scene, it's obviously that Sonny's very distraught. This was an old girlfriend. Her husband, Jerry, also shows up on the scene, and Crockett tells him, don't let his emotions get ahead of him and go out to exact revenge. He's pleading with him, do not exact revenge. They have kids, and, he doesn't need to put himself out of commission or go to jail, and then those kids are left with their only remaining living parent.
Right, they're orphaned pretty much.
Yep, they would be orphaned. And then Castillo walks in there and he says that she was shot 5 times in the head with a .22, and Crockett says he knows it's Lombard. It's this is a pure outfit sign, hit .22 in her back of the head type of thing. And then Castillo says, anybody can buy a .22. He's just trying to settle Crockett down,
right,
or at least we're thinking so.
Get your emotions out of this.
Yep, get your emotions out of this. Then Tubbs chimes in and he gets right in Castillo's face and says, whose side are you on? To which Castillo replies, and I remember this.
Can I do it?
Go ahead.
Don't ever get in my face like that again, detective.
And that was a classic line that I remember to this day. It's just something that it sticks with you because, they're basically, they really are pushing the envelope with a guy that they have no idea about, or, for all they know, he could be somebody there to try to come in and clean up the OCB because Lou Rodriguez shot a little bit more from the hip when it came to things. He still was a buy the book, the guy, but his character was a little bit more loose while he's a little more, I'm just going to, Castillo's a little more pent up.
Moving forward, we're now on Lombard's boat. Tubbs is introduced to Lombard. They exchange stories back and forth about each other. I don't think this was a great scene here. I mean, you met him. Okay, whatever. It was very short anyways. Lombard says that Tubbs looks a little dark to be Italian, and he says he's from southern Italy.
It was just
Sicily?
It was the meet and greet. That's what it was.
Okay, now we're going back into OCB here. Schroeder's going through some files, leafing through the files. Crockett says, find anything interesting, and right away when Castillo's walking by, he snaps in, leave him alone. The man's doing his job. And it's another piece of friction there between Crockett and Castillo. And then moving forward, Gina Intruder giving particulars on Barb's movements prior to being found. She was in the water for 10 hours and Obviously never felt the shot coming. And there's no direct link between DeMarco or Lombard here. They're not, there's no connection. But a good piece of news here, Tubbs comes in OCB and says that Lombard wants him to handle all the Black and Latin acts in his business interests. So, which is good. Now they're getting really close to Lombard.
As we find out, one of his business interests are cockfighting. If I remember right, DeMarco said that, they clear 30,000 a fight or whatever, and they take 30% it off the top. It's like easy money, easy pickings from. However, one of the guys, Angel, who runs this particular cockfight that they're at, he's light on his money. He owes DeMarco $6,000. DeMarco's coming there to collect, and he wants at least $4,000 on that. So Tubbs says, let me handle this. And he was going by the name Richard. He says, let me handle this. And he takes Angel behind closed doors. He says that he's going to front Angel for the whole $6,000 just so DeMarco thinks that, he's paid in full.
And Angel's kind of bewildered here. He just doesn't say anything. He stares at him. And then Tubbs is like, will you blink?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a key point here, Tim, where all this money is.
Yes.
And, as I explained to you before, I had to play this again, where this money, okay, this guy only has 4. I'm going to front you the money. Obviously, the 2,000 that he won, so we got the full 6. But again, I had to play this over because it was kind of fuzzy, especially when it comes out.
Right, and what does Tubbs do, or Richard does? He comes out and he tells DeMarco, hey, I got $4,000 for you, buddy. And then this is something that we want to remember later when we get to the club scene, because it's key to some leverage that they're going to use. So here we are. We arrive at the club scene. Tubbs is busting out a move, 80s style.
Yes, he is.
Wasn't he? And then basically DeMarco tells Lombard, this guy's the real deal. He got the money. They discuss the money from England. DeMarco says, here's $4,000 that he got back for us. Now, remember
I think didn't Lombard say that he just gave him the cash, and Lombard goes, $4,000. Nice.
Yeah. It's just something that, hey, we got what we were coming for from this guy, and Richard made that happen for us. But, again, Angel thinks that he's paid in full, the whole $6,000, the whole ride. And then Tubbs has a private conversation with Lombard after DeMarco stepped away, and he said, hey, I collected $6,000 at the cockfight. And then mobbed up Lombard is like, he's stunned, he's floored that. That's not what DeMarco just handed me type of things. Tubbs said that he leaned on Angel and collected the full whack on this whole thing. The full whack.
I got $4,000 for you, buddy.
How did you make out?
You took in a full payment from Angel, huh?
$4,000. Not bad.
You collected $6,000 at the cockfight. Not too shabby.
$6,000.
Angel gave me a hard time. I leaned on him a little bit and collected the full whack.
Yep. And then Lombard leaves, DeMarco, Tubbs, and he says, we're going to do lunch tomorrow at noon, whatever the time, walks away. And then Tubbs spills the beans to DeMarco that he knows Lombard, what he's going to discuss at lunch tomorrow, that he shorted him $2,000, which he really didn't. And then DeMarco's like, what's going on here? And he says, he calls it a setup. Are you willing to bet your life, Vincent? Then here we are back at OCB. Crockett and Castillo are discussing his case, and in barges Schroeder. And this is one of the key points here. I guess flipping points. Maybe the light switch is turned on in Crockett's eyes. Will play out in the rest of the series. They're discussing the case, and in barges Eternal Fair Schroeder, and he's flapping his gums to Crockett about missing his court meeting or whatever. And then Castillo finally shows his bond with the detectives by scolding Schroeder. Who do you think you are walking into my office and mouthing off to one of my detectives? And he runs down the arrest and commendations and says that, he's either stupid to believe this case or that he's been had. And then Schroeder still, flapping gums, even good detectives have a bad side or whatever. And then this is where I wanted to kind of focus on Castillo's curtness, I guess you could say, from the moment he walked in and whistled, where's my office? And then leave that man alone. He's doing his job. No, you're not going to get Barb. Don't ever get up in my face like that again, detective. Those curtnesses, whatever you want to call them. I guess he was just trying to set the tone to his detectives more prominently Crockett and Tubbs. He is that sharp suit, that sharp pressed suit. He's no nonsense. He's crisp. He's towing the line, I guess you could say.
And obviously the writers here, when they brought this character in after Lou Rodriguez's death, when that actor moved on from the show, they wanted to make that stark contrast between the two, where Lou was more loud or outgoing when he's talking to him. And again, he wasn't going to take any of Sonny's crap. It's always by the book, Sonny, by the book. When you got a guy like this who's a little bit, it's obviously they dress him down from the brighter colors of the Miami scene during the 80s. They put him in a black suit to make him stand out in a crowd.
Right.
Like, he's the queen bee in a hive, and you got all the worker bees around him. They wanted him. He's down to business. It's something that obviously was not explained. They didn't go in depth with character development, but we have no idea what Martin Castillo, what his impression of the OCB was, or from what he was told from his superiors when he was given this assignment. For all we know, he could have been told, hey, these guys are a little bit loose. They need to be tightened up. So that could be one way we could talk about his curtness.
Right. Maybe he was just trying to absorb everything.
Lieutenant Castillo. Sonny Crockett.
Hi, Jason. Hey, did you file a report on the incident that happened this morning?
No, not yet.
Schroeder, you're not gonna go on the word of some known sleazorama who'd plea bargain his own grandmother.
Enough.
Look, I can get Barbara Carroll up here in 20 minutes and we'll straighten this whole thing out.
No, you're not.
5 shots in the back of the head with a .22.
Outfit trademark. Lombard.
Anybody can buy a .22.
Hey, what side are you on?
Don't ever come up to my face like this again, detective.
Your no-show at the prelims was good, Crockett. Where's the Clarence Darrow defense? Why don't you just hang it up and become a security guard, huh?
Schroeder,
Yes, Lieutenant.
who do you think you are to walk into my office and mouth off to one of my detectives? I'd say either you've been had or you're a complete idiot for believing the charges against him. One thing it does mean is that he doesn't have to walk around here being harassed by you. If you're done with the files, get out.
Moving along, this is it's still in the office here. Tubbs comes in, and then DeMarco calls Richard, which is Tubbs, obviously, at OCB, wondering what's going on and why is he jamming him up with Lombard. Come on down. Tubbs says, come on down to OCB. Or didn't really say come to OCB. He said, come here, which ended up being OCB. And DeMarco comes in, finds out that Tubbs is a cop. He's presented pretty much with a pre-typed confession saying that Crockett is innocent. They run down the whole gamut to whatever. And then he's going to be forced to work with Vice to wear a wire against Lombard at this lunch meeting. And if he doesn't, he faces a minimum of 5 years in jail. Jail or lunch? Well, obviously, confession is signed. And what I think Crockett says, tell Schroeder to eat it, something like that.
Yeah, he did. It's kind of odd that DeMarco, or the character of him, was not smart enough to just lawyer up when they're putting a pre-typed confession in front of him, and that's definitely would not fly this day and age.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So he was stupid enough to go along with it because he was a jittery, panicky type of guy. All right, so now we end up on Lombard's boat where the big meet's at. The OCB team is covering everything on the outside in preparation. DeMarco's wearing a wire. They go on board. Him and Rico go on board. And Lombard says, let's shove off the dock. Sonny tells him, just keep a loose tail on the boat. And Lombard just starts talking about the money that from Angel, like how he got shorted here. And then DeMarco just comes up with this story about Rudy needing that extra couple K to get out of town after he killed Barb.
I was wondering who's Rudy. Was he the driver of the car when Barb came up to it, I'm guessing?
Yeah, probably because those were the only two that were in that car, and that she took the long ride to her
to the lake.
Destiny in the lake there. Then Lombard, he pulls DeMarco aside to talk to him privately after this big revelation that DeMarco comes up with. Then suddenly Sonny sees Jerry on the yacht, and he tells all units to move in and says everything's ready to blow up here. It flashes into the private meeting between DeMarco and Lombard, and DeMarco's trying to save his own butt, and he shows Lombard the wire, and he said, man, they made me do it. I was set up by the cops. Right. Jerry pops in suddenly into that living air, and he just caps DeMarco, just unloads, and Lombard's arrested, but everyone knows that he's going to be out quickly, and Lombard got really smug with him about this and said, nothing's going to stick.
Nothing's going to stick. And you know what? Barb's husband, he was remorseful here at the end, but this is where I was going, leading to earlier about Jerry, Barb's husband. To me, and I don't know about you, Tim, I think his character was very weak. It wasn't really formed well. Okay, at the end here, he shot the bad guy. Obviously, it killed his wife, or part of the people who killed his wife. He just seemed very weak. I mean, they didn't show how he got on a boat. Was he following Lombard this whole time? Was he following DeMarco the whole time? Was he following Crockett this whole time? How did he plan? How did he formulate kill DeMarco? How were his kids taken care of? Although we never saw the kids, but something as big as this, how did the character could have been stronger? That's all I'm thinking.
Right, exactly. It was just a little bit of too mysterious that he ends up showing up on this boat without explanation. They didn't delve deeper in his character, showing him making the plotting or the planning of carrying out this execution on DeMarco.
Miami Vice.
Not half bad, Detective. Too bad things didn't work out for you.
Then we cut to the final scene where Crockett and Tubbs are on the St. Vitus, and they both talk about how Jerry's going to go to jail and that Lombard is back on the street again. So that's going to be
back out of the street 5 minutes after that, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, yeah, easily, because he lawyered up in there. They didn't have anything that really tied him to anything other than catching DeMarco on wire saying something about Rudy killing him. Right. So the episode ends with Crockett giving Tubbs a fishing rod. Enrico said it's 10 p.m. and Crockett describes it as, and this is where it will be the answer to this week's trivia question.
Yeah. All right, now let's briefly go over the ratings. Ratinggraph.com gives this episode a 7.9. IMDb gives it a 7.9 as well. I think it was a good episode, but a tad confusing on my part at least, with the money between Tubbs and DeMarco. Like I said, I had to watch it a couple times to get it, but I finally figured it out. I found, however, like I said, Barb's husband's character, he was weak on how it played out, especially since he was pretty much the main character who shot DeMarco. Should have been more shown.
I'm going to have to go ahead and give this a thumbs sideways. Tim, what about you?
I really like this episode, mainly from the standpoint of they could have called this, instead of One-Eye Jack, they could have called it Leverage if they wanted to. Because it was all about using leverage to get what they wanted. And obviously, Lombard set up Crockett taking a bribe, so he called into, we're assuming he called this into IAB to say, hey, you got a dirty cop here. That was his leverage. Let's get Sonny out of the way. And then Tubbs leveraged DeMarco by setting him up with Lombard by doing the whole shorting of the 2K on the whole strong arm at the cockfight of Angel. Sonny ended up coming out okay, but as we found out, Lombard remained ever elusive because Jerry basically blew everything up for him. Mark, I give this episode a midway between thumbs up and thumbs down. And we now have come to the part of the show where we hope to inspire or enlighten. We have officially named this Snurd's Chalkboard of Wisdom. In both the world of Miami Vice and our current world at large, we encounter many challenges we work to overcome. In the interest of creating a family and friendly atmosphere through the show and on our social media platforms, Mark and I would like to offer some parting thoughts, a simple quote, phrase, or words of encouragement, or funny quip to you, our listeners, because without you, our friends, we'd just be talking ourselves. And we say our friends because that's what we consider all of you who follow our show and social media. This show's quote is from master martial artist and author Eric Allen. Everyone is my teacher. Some I seek, some I subconsciously attract. Often I learn simply by observing others. Some may be completely unaware that I'm learning from them, yet I bow deeply in gratitude.
And with that, we'd like to bring this episode of the Vice of Miami podcast to a close. Tim and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you listening. We hope you enjoy what we have to offer. Please spread the word about our shows and comment and rate us on your podcast platforms. We'll see you next time for Vice of Miami show number 8, where we discuss Miami Vice Episode 7, No Exit. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Vice of Miami Podcast, or email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com.
Please rate us and comment on the episodes and spread the word about the show. On YouTube, press the like button and hit the subscribe bell.